Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers.
And
All right, man.
all right, Brewer fans, welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast with Craig and Vince joining you today here in early December. How are you doing, Vince?
I'm doing great, Craig. Nice to finally get some cool weather down here in Texas. So it's definitely the off season. I'm doing great though. How are you?
Great. And I know the big winter meetings are coming up. Start a couple days here. I think they're December 8th through the 12th, and they're actually held in Dallas, Texas this year.
Yep.
Which is in somewhat your neck of the woods. But anyway, yeah. So the Brewers will. Well, let's start off by saying congratulations to Pat Murphy, who was named NL Manager of the Year, the first Brewers manager ever named Manager of the Year, and the last franchise in baseball to get awarded with a Manager of the Year. So congratulations to the Brewers. You finally crossed that off your list. So congratulations.
I didn't realize for some reason until right now that we were the last franchise to not have a Manager of the Year. I don't know how I didn't know that, but I did know that Pat Murphy was the first. So that's exciting for the Brewers and obviously for Pat on a personal level. But it's pretty exciting that not only did he win the award, but he won it as a rookie manager. Basically, I mean, he had managed a partial season with the Padres a number of years back, but to come in and do the job that Pat did was pretty incredible and clearly made a difference this year on the field as well. I'm glad to see that, the league recognized exactly the contributions that Pat Murphy makes to the team on a daily basis.
Well, it is a little bit poetic justice. I think Craig Counsell was in and running for manager of the year a lot of the last 6 years and as a Brewer manager and didn't get in any of those somehow. But now I'm not feeling so bitter about that anymore now that Pat Murphy has won it as a rookie manager after we got scorned by Craig Counsell. So I guess things sometimes work out how they're supposed to. But so congratulations to Pat Murphy. What a year winning the NL Central. Like you said, it is basically rookie manager year. Also, you got to think that we're in good hands moving forward because Matt Arnold was also named MLB Executive of the Year, as we mentioned, I think, in our last podcast. So, when you have the NL Manager of the Year and the MLB Executive of the Year as your GM and manager, that's a good. And then you also have a pretty consensusly top 3 prospect that was a rookie for you last year in all of baseball, and Jackson Trio locked up for 8 years or so. That's there's reasons for some optimism if you're a Milwaukee Brewer fan.
Yeah, definitely. And, we can talk about it on a future episode, I'm guessing, down the road in a couple months. But the Brewers' top 25 prospect list was re-updated by Baseball America in the last week or two. I'm sure that you saw that or Scotty's interns gave that to you. But there are some really good names on that list. And it's pretty exciting to see guys like Cooper Pratt come up through the system, Jacob Mizorowski and Jesus Made. It's really exciting to see what the Brewers have in the minor league system. And obviously that was another reason why the team had so much success on the field this season as well, is some of the younger guys just really coming into their own. And it'll be exciting to see what this next generation of Brewers can do as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I just mentioned, Manager of the Year, Executive of the Year, top 5 farm system probably in baseball. And then you also were the NL Central Division winners. That's a pretty good point to be launching forward on. So in spite of the disappointment,
now we just need an owner willing to spend some money. But that's it.
Yeah, I think that let's do it. Come on, Mark. It's Christmas time. Hopefully you're feeling generous. The holidays, and we would like you to sign Juan Soto. First of all, if that doesn't work out, we can understand. But anyway, I mean, we just have not been very active in the marquee free agent signing market for a very long time. Actually, I think forever, pretty much, as Brewer fans. So,
I mean, there's been times where we've been a little bit more active than others, but there was something our interns put out on social media this week, Craig, and I'm sure you saw it, paying close attention to all of our social media accounts. But the Brewers are very middle of the pack in percentage of generated annual revenue that's put back into payroll. So the Brewers currently stand at only 47.8% of revenue that's put back in the payroll on the field. So essentially, for every dollar that's being made, Mark Ananasio is keeping more than 50 cents of that instead of plowing it back, into product on the field. And some of the teams that are ahead of us would surprise you probably. The Rockies, the Royals, other teams that put actually more money into their on-field product than Milwaukee. And that's just revenue taken in. So it really has nothing to do with us being a small market. It just that's the percentage that we actually put back onto the field. So I'd like to see that change in all seriousness.
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, and again, I get that the strategic when you're a small market, you can strategically time out when's the best time to expand payroll and to kind of invest a little more in all this. But I mean, like you said, the I don't want to say the necessary time is now, but the future is bright for the Milwaukee Brewers, and I would like to think that we have the owner that's willing to spend when it's the right time to do so. And so I am not confident in that over his tenure as a Milwaukee Brewers owner. So hopefully that changes moving forward. But again, baseball is a tricky thing. You don't necessarily want to spend like the Colorado Rockies, like kind of foolishly. They signed Chris Bryant to a long-term contract
Right.
over 2 years ago, and that's pretty much an unmitigated disaster. So avoiding those type of things doesn't necessarily make you a bad owner. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, overly hitting the bargain bin / dumpster diving every single year is a little bit frustrating as a fan. There's no doubt about that. So I
Yeah, it's
guess,
not spending just to spend money. It's more just, being willing to spend when it's strategically in your interest to do so. I think that that's the model I would use. I mean, I would definitely argue that the Rockies have spent some stupid money over the years, but I do think that there are opportunities that the Brewers or teams like the Brewers have missed because they're not willing to spend, a little bit of extra money when it comes down to it. Especially in seasons like the one that we've got coming up, where you're coming off of a very good season on the field, and you're going to lose some pieces this offseason, and we're going to have to, find ways to replace some of that. So I do think that this could be an offseason that the Brewers should probably be looking to spend a little bit more than they have in seasons past.
yeah, absolutely. So one of the key members of our clubhouse and our team, of course, over the last many years has been Willie Adames, our starting shortstop. Most likely he's a free agent, and it's pretty much a foregone conclusion he probably won't be re-signing a long-term contract with Milwaukee Brewers. Let's just take a moment to try to let's throw out our best guesses on where we think he will sign. The Brewers should receive compensation from the team because they did offer him a qualifying offer. And so the Brewers, I believe, based on what his contract would be for, we shall see, but they should most likely get a supplemental first-round pick and compensation for Willie Adames, which is pretty nice for the farm system. But what are your predictions? Any teams that you think that will stand out to you as potential signers of Willie?
I hate to say it, but I think that the Dodgers are probably the best positioned team to sign him. So my prediction is going to be the Dodgers. The sleeper prediction is that he comes back to Milwaukee actually on a shorter deal, but I don't think that's very likely. There is a part of me that could see that happening where he comes back on like a 2-year deal that's for a huge, AAV. But I tend to think he's going to get a 5-year deal from the Dodgers. That sounds about right to me.
Yeah, good guess. That's probably the number one odds-on favorite to do it. I'll just be different and say the Toronto Blue Jays. Not sure exactly if that'll happen, but I'll just go with that. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'd love to have Willie back, but it's just probably not going to be in the cards. Now, that will create a hole at shortstop, which we've already mentioned could obviously be filled by Joey Ortiz, most likely. We talked again in our last podcast that Bryce Trang winning a Gold Glove at second baseman. He's probably staying there, I'm guessing. So that leaves a hole at third base. Rhys Hoskins obviously coming back at first base. We've got our all-star catcher, Contreras behind the plate. We've got a pretty envious outfield, led by a lot of young guns and Christian Yelich. So really, if you step back and look at our offense, the really glaring hole really is at third base. Again, we're not probably going to trade for Nolan Arenado. We're probably not going to sign Alex Bregman necessarily. And so, without that being said, what are your thoughts on what the Brewers now, what they will do to fill their third base hole, I guess?
Well, I agree that Arenado's probably not a guy that we can get simply because I don't see the Cardinals wanting to trade him within the division. Though he would be great. I'm not so sure that we're out on Bregman, and that would be a guy that I think that we could see the Brewers maybe spend a little bit of money on. I think he's going to end up getting a contract that's going to be worth less overall than Adamas's is, and so I think that that could be more palatable to ownership. So I could actually see a Bregman deal making some sense for Milwaukee, where you're not going to have to give up anything to get him. And he's got a pretty proven track record here in Houston, where I'm currently talking to you from, and I do think that he might be a good fit. I think he could play especially well at Miller Park as well. The other option that that I'm guessing could be realistic is getting Alec Boehm from the Phillies. I think that there's been a lot of chatter that he is on the market. I don't know what the Phillies would exactly be looking for, but they certainly do need some back end of the bullpen help, and maybe Devin Williams could be an option there. I personally am less inclined to trade Devin at this point in time, and I know that the Phillies are certainly in win now mode. Something about Philadelphia and Bain though doesn't seem to sync. So I'm not sure, why the Phillies would want to give him up when they're in go for it now mode, except the fact that he just, it seems like he's not a good fit for that franchise and for that city. So he would be a target though for sure if we can match up on what the Phillies are looking for in a return in the trade.
Yeah, no, those are some good options, and those would all be pretty solid. Though, yeah, I guess I'm being more realistic. Well, the way I'm looking at it is that, okay, so they drafted Brock Wilken 2 years ago in the top 20 picks of the first round. He's a third baseman. He's got power. He's probably their third baseman in the future, but he's probably not going to be ready for at least late into this season, if not next. So that, to me, they're probably going to go the route of like trying to bridge that year to him and kind of unfortunately hit the bargain bin again. And looking at some names in the bargain bin, someone threw out Yoan Moncada from the White Sox. Not very interested in him as a free agent. Obviously, he was super hyped coming when he signed, but I think he's just not met expectations. I feel like he's not. I guess I'll say I'd like to pass on that, but he's a potential option. Another name bantied about that when I heard it, I was like, oh God, yeah, that's who we're probably going to sign is Paul DeYoung, who of course longtime Cardinal. He did play last year. I think end of the year after getting traded to the Royals, who of course made the playoffs, and he filled it kind of admirably. But again, the nice thing about him is he can play short or third, which gives you kind of coverage for Joey Ortiz. So he does make a ton of sense. Fortunately, he has power, but his on-base skills are kind of lacking. With that being said, he'd probably come on the cheap. So if you're a betting Brewer fan, I would probably put my money on Paul DeJong being a Brewer, unfortunately. But some of the other names kind of in that end of the bargain bin that are, free agents or possibly easily got via trade. His names I'll throw out there as possible options, which again, not very exciting, but JD Davis, former Astro, and again, the nice thing about him is he can play either corner spot, first base, third base. Again, I think given everyday at bats, I think he can put up better numbers than DeYoung actually. So I would not mind him. The other player that I'm a big fan of that's just like stuck on our team with no room. Unfortunately, he's kind of Joey Gallo-esque, and that's Bobby Dahlbeck. He's got massive power and some upside still. He's only, I think, 26 years old, which means he's about to enter his prime. And, if he's ever going to make in the big leagues, he just needs an opportunity. I feel could be had from Boston for basically nothing, as he's still, I think he's still under team control. So those are some names out there as
Craig, all these names are awful. Like, I don't want any of these guys.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to say that you're a Milwaukee Brewer fan, and that yeah, most likely we'll get if we don't get one of the names I just mentioned, we're most likely to get someone on the same ilk. I mean, I hate to say it, but like I bet pretty hard money we won't be signing Alex Bregman as much as I'd want to. It's just going to be cost prohibitive. But I just don't
we have
know.
the money. We just choose not to spend it. Paul DeYoung had a 277 OBP last year. I mean, he's not
Terrible.
good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's awful. Like one of the worst players in baseball, in my opinion. I just
Well, if we
can't
were
stand
willing
that
to
guy.
spend the
So
money on a Bregman, why wouldn't we just spend the money and bring Adamas back and leave Joey Ortiz at third, though? I just don't get that.
well, I think that Adamas is younger than Bregman at this point, and I think that he's going to be more expensive than Bregman at this point, and probably command an extra, I would say, 2 years over Bregman because of that. So I think that it's the length of the contract and the overall dollar amount probably that would
Yeah.
be cost prohibitive for the Brewers. I could see the Brewers saving some money getting Bregman for say a 3-year deal, whereas I think Adames is going to get a 5-year deal if I had to guess. He's the premier shortstop on the market. He, as we all saw as Brewer fans, he had an incredible contract year going into his contract off season here last season. So I just think that Bregman is probably going to end up with a 3-year deal, and probably you may even be able to get him for a deal sort of like what we got with Hopkins. That was you had a team option or a player option thrown in there. I could see Bregman being a little bit creative with the Brewers. I just think that Adames being the premier position player, a, a position like shortstop, a younger guy coming off a career year, I think he's going to end up getting a 5-year deal that the Brewers just won't want to match.
No, yeah,
And, and,
that's all
and quite
realistic.
frankly, I would say that Bregman's got some. I would say that again, Adames had a great year last year, but I would almost say that Bregman is a little bit more consistent. I love Willie Adames. I think that he's great. He's been awesome to watch in Milwaukee over the past, 3, 4 seasons. But I also think that 5 years from now, he's a guy that we probably will be glad that we didn't spend that amount of money on. I'm going to miss him in the clubhouse and on the bench if he does indeed leave. But I also think that there was a time in say 2023, early 2023, late 2022. Willie had some moments where I think a lot of Brewer fans were frustrated with him too. So he doesn't have the track record that Bregman does. And again, I love Willie Adames. It's nothing against him. I'm just saying I don't know that I personally wouldn't give him a 5-year deal. Like even if the Brewers were willing to allocate the payroll, I think that Bregman is a little bit more of a consistent entity at this point.
Yeah, those are all fair points. And I think that honestly, as much as Willie, will miss Willie's power and whatever, I think the biggest loss for him will be his presence in the clubhouse, and I think that can't be understated enough. So unfortunately, we'll see. And there's a possibility we bring him back, but just again, not likely. So again, just throwing out these terrible free agent names like I did. The more likely scenario, even though you and I don't want us to trade Devin, I think that all of MLB baseball thinks that we're trading Devin this all season, and I have to say that I think the Milwaukee Brewers think they're trading Devin Williams this offseason. So because of those two, I shouldn't say facts, but those two feelings I have, I think Devin Williams is almost as good as gone this offseason. And so most likely we may target a third baseman via trade, a young third baseman or something like that. But with that being said, I think we should just try to get the best package we can for him regardless of position. So I don't want to be only looking for suitors that have a third baseman for us. But so we'll see what happens there. But again, it's hard to really predict. Almost any contending team could use a closer like Devin Williams or even a back of the bullpen arm if they already have an established closer or whatnot. So I think there's going to be lots of suitors for Devin Williams. So I think we may have kind of our pick of the litter as far as like a top trade package. So we'll see. I'm hoping for exciting hot stove season. And then I think because of the fact that we also let go some pitchers, obviously we just Frankie Montas, I should mention, just signed with the New York Mets. We didn't bring him back.
Yep.
And then of
Right.
course we did not tender a contract, or we non-tendered basically Colin Ray, who we mentioned. That was kind of surprising. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do sign at least one or two freedom pitchers. And if I had to guess, it'll be some type of reclamation project along the same lines of a Tobias Myers or something like that. The one guy that kind of sticks out to me was a guy that was actually DFA by the Braves after he was traded from the Angels, but that's Griffin Canning, starting pitcher from the Angels, long time for the Angels. Again, he's been kind of middling, but I think the Brewers maybe could turn him around a little bit. But it'll probably be someone like that, someone not super exciting. But obviously, as a small market team, I'm less. I'm more on board with not giving 5, 6 year contracts to starting pitchers, just because of
Yeah.
if we're going to give that long-term a deal, why not give it to a Willie Adames or Alex Bregman or someone that's established on the offensive end of things? Because they're less likely to bust out or to go downhill fast, in my opinion. So I mean that's smart, but I still think we're going to. And again, I think that as much as you're throwing out those things about we obviously aren't putting what we're making back in. I think that unfortunately the Brewers are looking to probably make less with what's going on with the TV contracts and stuff like that, basically the broadcast being taken over by Major League Baseball this season. Unless, yeah, so Diamond Sports is in some type of bankruptcy thing, and they've actually re-upped with a lot of teams. The Brewers, as of now, are not one of them. I don't know how that affects things short term financially, but I think long term that'd be a bad thing for the Brewers.
No, no, it's going to be a good thing for the Brewers, I think, because there's going to be the opportunity then to negotiate a better deal. The Brewers have had the worst TV contract by revenue in baseball for the last 19 years or something like that. So we do have the opportunity to finally get out of some bad TV contracts, and I think that viewership of Brewer games is sky high throughout Wisconsin during the summer. I think that it's about time that we negotiated a better deal. So I do blame ownership for not negotiating a better deal in the first place. But this is a real opportunity to rectify that.
Yeah, but unfortunately, what my feeling is, it's going to be with like a streaming service now with a cable company, and the difference in that when you have a contract with a cable company, you're getting a little bit of money off of people that have cable packages that are non-baseball fans, and so you're getting a cut of that. And when you're going to a streaming service, it'll be most likely something that's just like specifically for baseball, and they're specifically signing up just to watch the Brewers, and there'll be less of a pool. But like you said, there are some opportunities if it is picked up by someone like Amazon or a bigger streaming service or something like that. And again, this is all new territory for Major League Baseball, especially for the small teams like the Brewers. So you just don't know which way things go. But the way that people watch television is changing, has changed. It's not going back.
Yeah.
My parents, my parents just told me that their cable bill went up from $180 a month to $240 a month. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I literally probably pay like $50 a month in streaming services, and that's it. And I still get to, including that can't happen. So that's all going to change, and money's going to go away. But how it affects the small market teams, I don't think necessarily will be positive overall. But like you said, in the short term, it could be. But again, this is a little bit too complicated to really figure out which way it's going. But I think because of the uncertainty, I'll just put it that way, I think Mark Antonovsky will be even more gun shy about handing out 5 or 6 year contracts. I guess I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I think this could be a good opportunity. The viewership, as you mentioned, is certainly changing. I think that the average, cable subscriber is probably of a certain age demographic, and somebody who, is under the age of, let's just say, 55 or 60 is going to probably be more inclined to stream something because, that's, I think, a much better option. It gets you a lot more versatile, options in terms of what you can view. And I think that you can make baseball part of something like that. So you get some of the benefits of pooling resources even amongst non-baseball fans to have that as an option on a streaming service. It's popular for a variety of reasons. And I think that you've seen that other franchises do that somewhat successfully. And I think that that's going to continue to evolve as viewership trends continue to evolve as well. I do want to go back, though, to what you said about Devin Williams. You saw our colleague Bob Nightingale reported I think it was yesterday, that the Brewers are no longer considered to be inclined to trade Devin. That was a report that came out after the GM meetings. Bob is not always correct, but he's got a direct quote from Matt Arnold in there saying that the Brewers are, quote, let me bring this up here. We consider him to be the best closer in baseball. And he's reporting that if the Brewers do decide to trade Williams, it will not be until the All-Star break next year, most likely.
Interesting.
So just
roll up the price.
All right. Yeah, and that could just be a negotiating strategy, of course. I mean, that's definitely a possibility, but just reporting what our colleague Bob Nightingale did put out there just recently on Sports Illustrated.
Yeah. And again, as we're seeing what we do with Willie Adames, I'm not totally against keeping him to the rest of the year if we're willing to pay him his contract and that he actually stays healthy the whole year, ends the year as a top closer again. You offer him a qualifying offer, which he will reject, and you'll get some form of compensation in a draft pick at least back. And so you get him a whole nother season, and then you get I said, if you really want to be winning, like I think that is a good strategy. Obviously, the one draft pick will probably be less compensation overall. That would probably get in the 2 or 3 players if we actually traded him. So again, it's kind of I trust. I guess I'll just put it this way: I trust Matt Arnold to do what's right when it comes to trading Williams or not. I trust.
Well, and the Brewers already declined their option on Williams for the $10.5 million option for 2025, meaning that he's coming back next year. Let's see. What is his salary for next year? We can have the interns look that up quickly. But basically.
Oh, go ahead.
The Brewers formally exercised their $8 million option on Freddie Peralta. I'm sorry, I just have this. These interns do not know how to write these notes appropriately for when we're actually on a show. But in any event, you've got an all-star level elite closer for a very reasonable dollar amount. So to me, yes, that's a trade asset, but it's also a guy that you can point to on the field and say, we're getting maximum value for this guy right now. So why trade him unless it's an offer that you're going to get blown away with? And, the deadline approach seems to work for the Brewers in some years. I didn't like the Josh Hader trade, as we've discussed many, many times on the show. But by keeping Williams at the beginning of the year, you then put yourself in the position that, okay, if the Brewers are having a great year again, you still got him, and you've got an elite closer at the back end of your bullpen. And if we're not, then you can easily trade him at the deadline, barring injury, and get something decent for him. And even if he does, worst case scenario, have a bad year or is injured or something, you're not breaking the bank on Devin Williams this season. So it's really a win-win-win scenario across the board to me.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. So we'll see how that plays out. But like I said, as the start of this hot stove season, you got, and then our next episode, we'll hopefully have our Christmas wish list for Mark Antanasio. Hopefully, he's a little bit more generous than in previous years, and for Matt Arnold. But so overall, I'm pretty excited. In spite of how last season ended, going into the next Milwaukee Brewers season, because we're gonna have Yelich back healthy. Jackson Trio is gonna be in his second year, and I think good things are gonna happen for the Milwaukee Brewers again, led by Manager of the Year Pat Murphy. So super excited.
We just have to get past that first round of the playoffs, Greg. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, and again, getting to the playoffs is not a guarantee. I guess if you're a longtime Brewer fan, you're well aware of that, like we are. But long 162 game season, but no longer just being happy being there. We got to move forward and make some runs deep into the playoffs. And we're long overdue for such a thing. So I think it's going to happen.
And I would say that I think that ownership is keenly aware of the fact that we do still have this window where we are the returning NL Central champions. The Reds are a talented team, but I don't think that they're quite there yet, even though they brought in Terry Francona, who is a proven winner in my book, and I like him. I still think that they're not there yet. I don't think that the Cubs are there yet. I do think that the Cardinals are definitely having a down period in their history. The Pirates are not there yet. So I do think that the division is still there for the Brewers to take. I do hope that ownership understands that this window is there and that we are in the position that we are in with this group of guys, and that with a few additions we might be able to retain that status for quite some time. And I'm hopeful. And I do think that, it's interesting. You, I'm sure, have talked to our anonymous source, Tom Carter, but he thinks that the Brewers are actually going to be spenders this offseason. Just so you know, that came right from Tom.
All right. TC, again, our anonymous source, he prefers not to use his last name, it's not Carter, actually. It's something else.
It's Carter. Yeah. Okay. So so we could say, if he doesn't want us to say his last name, we could just say Tom C.
He said, Tom is a very common first name, so we're more welcome to use that. But he said, please just don't use my last name. The last time I talked to him, and I said that I don't think we ever have, but he said he listens and that he has heard us say it. He claims on almost every single podcast, but anyway, I'd have to go back. We'll have our interns check into that. I'm not sure if that's totally accurate, but anyway. Yeah, so looking forward to the winter meetings coming up and to hopefully a very active December and January here, and we'll get back at it with some more podcasts. But exciting off season here for Milwaukee Brewers, and thanks for joining me today, Vince. Yeah. And stay classy, Wisconsin, and
stay classy, Craig. Go Brewers, and we'll be back at you next episode with a How Scott Saves Christmas recap, I'm sure.
That'll be excellent. Our fans are waiting the edge of their seats. So have a happy holidays, but we'll talk to you here again before Christmas. So check back in, and again, thanks for listening. Go Brewers.
Yep. Go Brewers.
Do, 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 do.